do you have any questions before we start, or?
Do I have any questions before? Katie, that's
Hi.
how. That's what you go by,
Yes,
and
yes.
you go by Cobble for the
Yeah.
purposes of the
Yeah.
podcast. Great. No, I just wanted to make sure. I didn't want to like
Yeah.
out
No
you
worries.
as
Yeah.
Wesley.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can, like, it's not a problem. Everyone knows my name, but
Okay. I don't
Yeah.
know if people are after you or like I just want to
yeah,
make sure that I want to
we
make sure you're
Secret
safe.
identity.
we don't
Yeah.
Yeah.
talk about that.
Okay. And my sound levels sound okay to you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they sound
Yeah.
Yeah.
perfect. Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
voice went up like 2 pitches. Does that mean no?
No. Yeah. Actually. Hello there.
Hello.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Welcome to
The Actually.
podcast. Woo! Yeah. Actually. Woo! Actually. Let's go. Actually. Woo! Actually. Yeah. It's fine. Actually. Yeah. Woo!
I am not ready for this.
Oh my goodness. Oh, actually. With your hosts
The wonderful Cobble.
and the amazing Katie. Oh yeah. Actually. Yeah. Hello.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Indeed.
Happy New Year.
To you.
It's 2022. What?
It's
the fuck?
2022. And part of my brain says that it just became like 2020
Yes.
because we
Yeah.
like it feels like we lost 2 years.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
it feels like
Mentally,
yeah.
I'm still in March 2020. Like,
Exactly.
time didn't exist in 2021, but
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
hope this year is a better one. I hope you all enjoyed your New Year's celebrations, however you
Yes.
celebrated it.
Yes. And I hope you also liked us chatting about the new year and about our New Year resolutions in the last episode. This episode is the first episode of 2022, and we're
Let's
gonna kick the year off with a very nice and neat one because this is the episode, well, a episode with our first guest
Our
ever.
first guest. Look at us. Look at us. We have
I'm
a
not
guest.
gonna lie. I'm a little nervous.
We're a little nervous. It's fine
Yeah.
though. We are professional podcasters, so
I had a
ready
moment.
for this.
I had a moment before we started recording.
Yeah, several moments.
I
Perhaps.
had a few moments. But later this episode, we are going to be joined by Elan Mastai.
Mm-hmm. Very
cool. Yes. So we're going to be joined by Elan Mastai. And for some people, that name might ring a bell because we've talked about him
We have.
in probably a few of our podcast episodes, actually, but
Yeah.
mainly in episode 3 of season 1, I think it was, where we talked
Yeah.
about time travel.
Mhm.
And in that episode, we talked about him in the context of, well, he wrote a book that had time travel in it.
Yeah.
And today, we're gonna talk to him,
Yeah.
and he's one of my favorite authors. So
it's very cool. Little did we know when we planned that episode that he would actually listen to it
yeah,
and that this would happen. So we're really grateful that he wants to be
Yep.
on this podcast with us.
Very
we're very
much
excited
so.
to talk to him.
very
and
much so.
Yeah, it's gonna be cool.
Yes, I'm very
Here
excited.
doing the
I'm
thing
very excited.
with guests. People want to talk to us. What? People
Yeah.
want to talk
Yeah,
to
people want to
us.
talk to us.
Cool.
But yeah, we're gonna talk more about like how we got in contact with Elan when he's actually here, because that's also kind of an interesting story.
Yeah.
But we're first guest today in the new year, the first day in the not the first day in the new year, but the first episode of the new year.
Yeah.
And we're very excited.
Very excited.
Yes, but
Yeah.
Katie, how was your week? What have you been through? What is going on in your mind?
I'm just overwhelmed at the fact that we are now in 2022, and
right.
I'm overwhelmed but excited because last year didn't feel real. Do you know what I mean?
Oh
Like,
yeah, definitely.
I don't know where the time went. It didn't feel real. It was a weird year, and I'm feeling excited but overwhelmed.
Yeah. The year went by super fast, and like I said, like I feel like I'm still at the in 2019, and we've just crossed over in 2020, but that's not true.
Yeah.
Didn't
exist.
Yeah. When I think about like when the pandemic started, was I 23?
23.
Was I 20? Was I 23?
Yeah,
I think I was 23.
Yeah.
Now I'm 25, and I don't know where that time went.
I was 25.
You were 25.
I was 25, and now I'm coming 28 in March. What the fuck?
Yeah.
I hate that so much. I hate that so much.
It's not 30 yet.
All right, well, sure. That makes me feel slightly better. It's not 30 yet. Don't worry.
It's not 30 yet.
Great.
You know?
Well,
yeah.
Feels, like at the start of the pandemic, I could have said like, I'm in my mid-20s still, and now like I'm in my late ass 20s. Like I cannot deny it anymore. I am in my late 20s. Like ugh.
Yeah. I'm turning 26 in July of this year.
Are we old?
And
no, we're not
and
old,
no, we're not. I swear we're not. But like I don't really have a problem with, well, maybe it's because I'm not like that close to 30 yet. Not to throw extra oil onto the fire.
Thanks, Cobble.
But
that is just absolutely wonderful. Thank you.
But like I don't really dread it or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I don't dread it. Like I know that I take the piss, like being 30 is not old, but like when like you go on TikTok, I saw this comment on TikTok the other day, right? And it was this girl like doing a TikTok response to a comment, and the comment was, "You're 24? You look so good for 24." And I was like, what? Like,
I beg your pardon?
On TikTok think that being 24 is ancient. It just makes me feel like, shut up. You know what I mean?
No.
Imagine that. You look good for 24. Jesus Christ.
Just snore.
We're not old. I mean, I feel old. Like,
oh yeah. I feel like I'm in my mid 40s.
I feel like I'm in my 80s. Sleep all day. I'm in pain all the time. I'm in my 80s.
Right. Okay, well,
yeah. You heard it here first. I'm in my 80s.
Yeah, Katie is in her 80s, actually.
Yeah.
In March, she turns 88.
88. Yes.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's correct information.
That's it.
Yeah.
Maybe as you grow older, you'll start to feel younger.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah,
that's yeah. Definitely. I'm sure.
Come on, optimism. Okay. A little optimism.
Cobble's like, stop being so morbid. Jesus.
Yeah, my God. Let's not spiral into a existential crisis right before we're gonna talk to Elan Mastai. Like,
he's gonna join us, and we're gonna be like, so life is meaningless. How are you?
So life is meaningless. How's it going? Oh shit. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
It's gonna be it. It's gonna be it.
Yeah.
Regardless, before we're gonna go to our guest, we always have a fixed segment in our podcast in which we talk about a movie or a show or a game of the week. And Katie's gonna talk about a game of the week.
I
this
am.
week?
Because the last a couple of weeks ago now,
Yeah.
the Game Awards happened, and I had
Yeah.
never watched the Game Awards before.
Really?
Yeah, I'd never watched them before.
Oh.
Obviously, I heard of them, but I'd never watched them because they're on like really late for us. It was like 1 a.m. I think it started. But I watched the Game Awards live with my community in Discord, and it was so much fun. I didn't realize that there's like tons of freaking trailers and like announcements and stuff during the
Oh,
Game Awards.
yeah.
It was really exciting.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And that happens every year.
Yeah, it was so cool. It was really
Yeah.
exciting. There's a lot of sci-fi stuff that was announced this year.
Yes.
Like,
I noticed
a lot.
that as well. There was a lot of sci-fi things. And one
Lots.
thing I was particularly excited about was a game from The Expanse,
Yeah.
starring Drummer as the main character and
Yeah.
voiced by the actress that plays Drummer in the show. And I lost
in
my shit.
Discord, like you were obviously asleep because it was like what, like 2 a.m. for you.
Yeah,
or
and I had
something?
work the next day.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
me and like my community were like, Cobble's gonna lose his shit. It's The Expanse. Oh my god.
Yeah.
And I sent you a message like, Cobble, there's an Expanse game.
Yeah,
But
I woke up to that. I woke up, I checked Discord, and I had a message from you and from like a few other people saying like, there's an Expanse game coming, oh my god,
I love
and
that.
it's gonna be made by Telltale Games, oh my god. And then I was like, are y'all freaking pulling a prank on me together, or what is this?
It's really happening.
But it was real, yeah, and I'm very excited for that.
Yeah, watching the Game Awards was so fun. Like I had a great time, and there was a lot of amazing games up for awards, and
Yes.
For the actual Game of the Year award, the
Mhm.
game that I'm going to talk about was nominated. I was actually I'm a huge fan of Resident Evil, and I was rooting for Resident Evil Village to win.
Yeah,
but
I was rooting for Ratchet and Clank to win.
Yeah. But so when it was being announced, I was like, come on, Village. But then It Takes Two won, and I was not mad about that because It Takes Two is the game I want to talk about. It is like I didn't know if it stood a chance against the other games that were nominated, but I'm so glad that it won because
Definitely deserved, I feel.
is so deserved. So It Takes Two is like an action adventure like platform game made by Hazelight Studios, and
Yeesh.
it is so wonderful. And this game is really special to me because I streamed this game on Twitch with one of my best friends, Britt, and so it is a co-op game, so you can play it like locally or you can play it online. And one of the really great things about it, and I think this is still a thing, on Origin you can get like a pass like for your friends.
Yeah,
to play
it's
it.
like only one person needs it, and then the
Yeah.
other person that is not like locally there with you doesn't have to buy the game.
Yeah, so they
Which is
just
really
get
cool.
this like free pass and they can play the entire game, because we weren't sure, like when we got it we're like, does this just give you access to like the first little bit of the game and then you have to buy the rest? But
Yeah, no, it's actually the
whole
full
game.
thing. Yeah.
It's really cool. So me
Especially in times like, well, the pandemic.
yeah,
I feel like that was a really smart move because like a lot of
Oh,
people
yeah.
couldn't get together to play that game locally together.
yes.
And like if you play the game locally together, you only need one copy. And so
Mhm.
I feel like it's really smart of them to be like, okay, well, let's get this pass thing that doesn't require you to buy the game if your
Yeah.
friend has it, which is really
Yeah.
nice.
It's
That's really nice.
it's a really good idea. And
Mhm.
yeah, it's such a wonderful game, and the storytelling in it is incredible. So the game is about this married couple who are like basically on the brink of divorce, and they have a child, and the child does not want them to divorce, obviously.
Mhm.
And by magical means they turn into these little like I don't know,
dolls,
these little
like
dolls. Yeah, they're like dolls that the child has made for her parents. Like she's made her parents in these
as
little
dolls. Yeah,
and they magically
come to
become the
life.
dolls.
Yeah, become to life.
And
Yeah.
the whole game is them like working together to try to, you know, get back to being themselves in human form. And it's such beautiful storytelling. It's really fun. There's like elements of the game that is inspired by other games. Like there's some cool Easter eggs like throughout the game. And yeah, it's really special to me because I streamed it over, I think it was like a month with Brit, and like it's a really, really wonderful game to play with someone, like a best friend or like your partner or like family, because it's hilarious and you have to work together, but also like, you know, it's challenging. Like it'll test your relationship a little bit, because there's, you know, there's challenges and puzzles and stuff, and you just can't get through it without using both abilities of both characters. So it's really fun.
I cannot wait to play with Cleo on stream. By the time this episode goes live, I will have played it with Cleo on stream.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm very excited.
I cannot wait to see you and Cleo play this.
Yeah.
Like, it's gonna be an adventure.
Because like I've been wanting to play it ever since it came out, because it was on my radar already, but yeah, I never got around to doing it. And I actually recently found out that the same studio also made A Way Out, which is also a co-op game.
Yes.
That I haven't played.
Yeah, me and Brit want to play that as well, because we loved It Takes Two so much, so we're like considering playing that one as well.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna play it with Kush.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That would be so good. Heck yeah.
Yeah, over on his stream.
It's highly recommend It Takes Two. And like now, okay, this is like such a funny story because like obviously it's called It Takes Two, right? So me and Brit are very like ooh emotional people, right? So just sometimes we'll like message each other, we'll be like, it does take two, it does. And we were playing Fortnite the other day. Yes, we still play Fortnite. And the new season of Fortnite came out, and we were playing a duo, right? And we got a victory royale, and it said It Takes Two, and we both lost our shit. We were like, oh my god, it does take two.
My god.
It's a great game. Highly recommend. And like it's beautiful. Like the art style is beautiful. Puzzles and challenges are so fun, and like the Easter eggs for other games are so fun. Yeah, I'm really, really glad it won Game of the Year. Actually, it was really nice to see.
Yeah,
that.
when I saw that It Takes Two won, I was like, you know what? That's fine. Like that's totally fine. They totally earned that. Even though I didn't play the game yet, like I was like, yeah, sure. Why the heck not? Because like it, you know, there's these AAA studios that are nominated for Game of the Year and stuff, and then you have like an indie developer, and like the underdog, and like I don't know, I enjoyed seeing them win the Game of the Year. It was really good. It's really nice.
And you're gonna love it. Like I know for a fact you are gonna love this game.
I will probably love it. I will probably love it.
You're gonna love this game.
I will probably love it.
It is right up your street. Like it has amazing characters, storytelling. It's like an action adventure platform game. You're gonna love it.
Yeah, platformers are kind of my jam. Like platformers are kind of my jam, so
yeah. It's great. Highly recommend.
It's gonna be nice. Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't watch it live. Like I used to watch it live when I was still in school, because I didn't really care that much about how I would feel the next day. But now I'm an adult who works, so I couldn't watch it live, so that's sad. It's the second year in a row that I had to watch it like the morning after.
Oh damn.
Which is kind of sad, but like at the same time, make it more Europe friendly.
Yeah, it was
because it's always in the middle of the night. I hate it.
Your time, so
I hate it so much. I hate so much. But yeah, I'm very happy that It Takes Two won, and I can't wait to play it myself. And I'm also really glad that you had a great time with it with Britt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that beach.
Yeah.
It does take two. It does.
It does. It does. This podcast also takes two, at least.
It does.
Yeah, it does.
But today it's gonna take three.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Speaking
exciting.
of, I think I hear someone knocking on our doors.
Oh.
No, he's not actually. He's not actually here. But yeah, we're gonna switch over and talk to the author that wrote one of my favorite books. Yep.
Let's
Yep.
do it.
Okay. Well. Yep. Okay. Welcome back, everyone.
Welcome.
As I said before, we're having a guest this episode, and I'm very excited. Especially me. Like we're both excited, but especially me because our guest today wrote the novel that got me back into reading, and that also inspired me to write for myself,
Yeah.
which was called All Our Wrong Todays. He's also a writer and co-executive producer on the show This Is Us, which he received an Emmy nomination for,
Nice.
which is pretty neat.
It's pretty neat.
Yes, pretty neat. And his most recent movie was called What If, or The F Word in some countries, which starred Daniel Radcliffe, Zoe Kazan, and Adam Driver. Welcome, Elan Mastai.
Thank you so much for having me. That was such a
Yeah.
nice introduction. I had to pretend like I wasn't here maybe while you were saying it.
No, it's fine.
But that was a lovely introduction, and I really appreciate what you said about the book. That means a lot to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because like we talked about you before on the podcast,
Yeah.
and yeah, we were talking about time travel in that episode, and that just reminded me of the book that you wrote that obviously has time travel in it. And I remember, like, I was at work when I don't remember, like, did I tag you in a tweet? I think I tagged you in a tweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, that must be it. Like I think that makes sense. Like I got tagged in a tweet, and then I saw that you were talking about the book on your podcast, and so as I often do, I walk going for a walk or a drive somewhere, I listen to the podcast, and
Nice.
it was lovely. I enjoyed all. I mean, you kind of like ran Katie through all your theories about time travel.
Yeah, yeah.
My
and,
mind was like,
yeah.
what's going on?
And then you said some very kind things about the book, and then you also on the podcast said that your goal for this podcast was to have me on the podcast. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh. And so I got in touch, and so now I think what's exciting about this for you is that now you have to come up with a new goal.
Yeah,
you
true.
True.
I
That's
do.
a very
And
good point.
I have no idea what. Maybe it's up to Katie now to think
no.
of something.
That would be nice, but I mean, I think in addition to being a guest on the podcast, I'm happy to talk you through this existential crisis that has suddenly been thrust upon you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, it's a service I provide.
All right,
We're well versed in existential crises, so like we could talk about that all day.
That's true.
It's great.
No, but yeah, I remember I was at work and I got a notification on my phone, and I immediately, I think I sent Katie a message in all caps, multiple messages.
No. I want to say I had 12 notifications, and I was like, "Oh my god! Like, what has happened?" And then he told me. I was like, right, it makes sense. Yeah.
You're like, oh my god, a meteor is hitting the earth, and
I was like, is he in danger? Like, what is going on?
So actually, the real story that it was just like some writer had tagged it. Like you were like, very disappointed.
No.
You were like preparing to say goodbye to life on Earth, and then you're like, oh, it was like a writer wrote you. Okay.
That's exactly
it. Yeah, exactly. No, it was really cool. We literally started this podcast like we started this as like a joke. We were like, we should start a podcast, and then literally like a week later we started this podcast.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
I mean, I know like it means a lot to Cobble to have you on here, so thank you so much for agreeing to be on here. And yeah, it's really cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
my pleasure. Happy to be here.
Yeah.
I saw on Twitter that you retweeted something a few days ago. Which was a meme. Yeah, sorry, I need to.
He has to say
It
this.
was like a meme where Adam Driver was green screened into Ratatouille, and I just wanted to know how you feel about that.
I think it's amazing. It's funny. There's a couple things that I've written that sort of keep coming back to me
Hmm.
through memes, through Twitter or Instagram or TikTok in this case, and that is a line of Adam Driver's from the movie I wrote, from What If, also known as the F Word. Um,
Mm.
where he announces with a lot of gusto that he just had sex and he's about to eat nachos and it's the greatest moment of his
Yes.
life.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, Adam, who is a lovely person and an incredible actor, like also has become quite well known as a pretty serious and famous actor. And then
Absolutely.
so this is I know people find this particular line very, very funny, and it's so delightful to me to see it come back to me in different ways.
Yeah.
You never know if anything you wrote is going to stick with anybody, and
Yeah.
so when things like that happen, no, I think it's hilarious.
It's
And
great.
I got tagged by so many people. Again, it was a similar thing where I'm like, is a meteor hitting the earth? Did I just accidentally get canceled? Like, what is happening right now? And then I realized it was Adam, and then I was relieved and delighted.
Yeah.
Amazing. I often see, like, on Twitter, like every so often, every few months, like a tweet blows up with with a particular chapter of your book.
That's right.
Like that happens every few months.
I know, and it's like, again, the same thing happens in, like, it'll get like 100,000, 200,000 retweets, and
Yeah.
it's chapter 56 from my novel All Our Wrong Todays, which is after the main character has just done something completely catastrophic. It's an entire page of, I don't know if we can swear on your
Yeah, yeah,
podcast,
yeah,
Oh
but
yeah,
yeah,
you
yeah.
can
yeah.
swear,
So
yeah.
it's an entire page almost exclusively of the word fuck, occasionally interspersed with the word shit. And so and it's just
Nice.
and so people post this page or this chapter is sort of like, like when something terrible has happened, when they've screwed up, when they regret something, when they're embarrassed about something. And
Yeah.
and it's very funny, like this one, and it's completely detached from the book. Half the time, I'm sure like 90% of the people who retweet it don't know what it's from. Although
Mhm.
there's always a few lovely people who like try to tell them what book it's from.
Oh
Yeah,
But it's so
yeah.
funny to me that chapter keeps coming back again and again. It's one of those things like that line of Adams where I didn't think that this chapter was going to go viral every like 4 months. But then again,
Yeah.
I also didn't know that we were going to live in the world that we live in now, and
Mhm.
and so it turns
True.
out that chapter proved far more useful and prescient than I expected.
Yeah. It
Yeah,
resonates
yeah,
heavily.
absolutely.
I feel that.
I also love how you explained the chapter for Katie, who hasn't read your book.
Listen.
It's fine. I like when you seemed so confident that you were going to read the book when you talked about it, but I could tell there was like a little hint in your voice where you're like, I'm probably not going to read it.
Listen, your book sounds absolutely wonderful. I am just like the worst reader, and I know you roasted me on Twitter and you were like, "Well, audiobooks exist." Um
In fact, I narrated the audiobook of All Around Today.
Did
So I
you?
could, it would be like
Ah,
me, like you could just like put it on your headphones and curl up in bed, and it'd be like me telling you like a little like a bedtime story.
nice. Okay,
Yeah,
well, I'll
that's
listen to it
great.
now. All right, I
Yeah.
will.
I know you're not going to. It's okay.
I
No,
will. I will make it my promise.
I will
When I listen to it, I
Mm,
will tweet you. I'll
okay.
be like, "I listened." There you go.
All right.
I will make
There
I
you go.
sure she
promise.
does. I will make sure she does. Even if it's the last thing I do.
Yeah.
I
I
will.
mean, I when I was a kid, I used to read like a lot, and I used to work as like a writer, but like a copywriter was like my full-time thing. Um but now I don't know what it is. I don't know if like if you feel the same that like the pandemic and like the last 2 years has changed like how you do everything. And I am that person that will be like, I don't have time to read, but I'll scroll TikTok for like 2 hours, you know?
Right. Well, I think it's because it doesn't ask that much of you, and
Yeah, true.
you feel like you can stop at any time, and but at the
Mhm.
same time, like it's designed to make you do it for as long as possible. So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
you could have spent an hour reading a book,
it's
but you're
so true.
scrolling.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, I think that Yeah, I think during the pandemic for me, actually, I read a lot during the pandemic because I found
Yeah.
myself escaping into books. And I found actually, I had a lot more trouble with long form television, even though I work
Mm.
I work in television.
Mm.
I found, I mean, I found myself watching a lot of like 1 or 2 episodes of a show, but not sticking through it. And I found myself
Mm.
going back to movies that I love, like from, the 80s or 90s, sometimes even earlier, sometimes later, but movies that I've seen many times before.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I know what happens. And I found myself
Mm.
rewatching my favorites through the pandemic because I think there was a comfort in knowing that it's all like that I know what's going to
Yes.
happen. Not like all my favorite movies have happy endings. Lots of my favorite movies have terrible endings, but
Yeah.
I know what's going to happen. And
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
almost, I think, a form of like a comfort in knowing what's going to happen when we're in the
Yes.
situation where we don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I totally get that because all my life I have been like a serial like repeater of watching like my favorite movies, and I do think it's like a comfort thing.
Yeah.
Like you go in and watch a new movie and you're like, but what I don't know if like what's gonna
What
happen.
if I
Like I
don't
don't
like
know.
it?
What if I
Yeah.
don't like it?
Yeah.
And
I
then
know
there's the
it.
comfort in rewatching your favorite movies. I get
And
that.
we're all under a lot of pressure right now. So it's like,
Mm,
who has time to be disappointed? Who has the energy to be
right.
disappointed? I only want to be satisfied.
Yeah,
Um,
true.
yeah, there's enough disappointments in the world. But I will say, actually, my first like professional writing job was also I was like a copywriter.
Oh.
When I got out of university, I got a job writing software manuals for a software company, and
Mhm.
um, it was quite a funny job because I was the only writer, it was all just programmers, and I wrote too fast. Like they kept getting angry at me because
No.
I was writing too fast. Like they would give me the material and it would, what them again, these were all very brilliant computer programmers.
Yeah.
I couldn't have done a fraction of what they did, but
Mm.
none of them were really like competent writers, which is why they had to hire me to actually like explain to a user how it was going to go. So what they thought of as 8 hours of writing was about 45 minutes of work. And so I found
Oh
myself
my
like
god.
7+ hours with nothing to do. And it was also at like this data park, like in the middle of nowhere. There was no restaurants, there was no coffee
Oh
shops,
my
there's
god.
nowhere to go. There was a vending machine. And so I was just stuck there. And that was actually what really started me writing because I had to sit at my
Ah.
desk. I
Mm.
had to pretend like I was writing. And so they would give me the day's work. I would breeze through it in like literally half an hour. And then I would just sit at my desk. And that was when I first started writing my own stuff, my own scripts, my own prose,
Wow.
because I was stuck there at the desk. I was being paid to be there, but I just didn't have enough work to get me through the day.
Yeah.
And so it was almost out of desperation. I literally learned how to sleep with my eyes open. That's how bored I was at this desk. And I would like prop my hand on prop my chin on my hand and like stare at the screen and put like one hand on the keyboard and literally fall asleep. But
Oh my
I started writing,
god.
and that was how I wrote my first scripts. That's how I wrote my first short stories. Was trapped there, and
Wow.
so, but and really, and that because it went on for so long, like that, I was able to kind of like build my confidence as a writer
Mm.
because I was an incompetent copywriter, but I turned out to be a relatively competent fiction writer.
That's amazing.
That is actually
Wow.
really nice. Like that's a really
Mhm.
cool story. Um
Yeah.
um I have a question, like where did the idea of like all of our wrong todays begin?
That's a good question. I mean, I think for me, a lot of my ideas, it's more like a couple different ideas that I have separately that then coalesce into one idea. And um, when I was growing up, my grandfather was a big science fiction fan. I mean, of like the vintage science fiction of like the 50s and 60s. He was a chemist by trade. Um, and I used to go over to his, my grandparents' house and this shelf. And it was a low, like his books were all on the lower shelf. So even as a kid, like I could get them. And I loved the
Mhm.
covers, like, these like garish painted covers of, you know, broad-chested adventurers and like aliens and shiny spacecraft
Yes.
all the buxom, all the aliens, the scientists, the adventurers, they were all buxom if they were female, and they were all like broad-chested,
Yeah.
and I just I love these images, and I love the stories inside. This kind of images of the future that were being crafted, but this was very much like from the 50s and 60s, right? The post-war generation,
Mhm.
and so what they believed the future was going to turn out to be was very optimistic, a world where technology was going to solve all of our problems, and that everything that
Mm.
had plagued humanity for millennia was going to be solved in the next like 30 to 40 years by
Yeah.
my technology. But even as a kid, my actual life, in the 80s and 90s was already in the future that these writers and artists had imagined. And it had
Yeah,
not
yeah,
turned
yeah.
out the way they it had not turned out the
Yeah.
way they thought it would.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was just something I was really interested in as a kid. And as I got older, I kind of kept coming back to that idea, like what happened to the future that we imagined. And eventually over time, my grandfather passed away. And I still kind of thought about that, like what happened to the future we were supposed to have. And then I thought to myself, if somebody from if my grandfather in the 1950s or in the 1960s had like time traveled to the 2010s or the 2020s, like it would seem like a dystopia to him. It would seem
Yeah,
like
Mm.
yeah,
everything
yeah,
had
yeah.
gone
Yeah.
wrong. And so I just got really interested in that idea. So that was something that I was thinking about. And then, I've always had this pet peeve about time travel. And also I would bring this back to my grandfather because he was a scientist and he was a sci-fi fan, but he always used to complain to me that, the science is really, really interesting. And the real science is actually totally fascinating. He doesn't understand why all these otherwise very imaginative and creative science fiction authors, like, why don't they just use the real science instead of making stuff up? Because the actual science is better and more complex and more surprising than the weird stuff they would just make up to make their plots work.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so something that always bothered me about time travel was this idea that when you're traveling back in time, you're also traveling back in space because the Earth moves and because the Earth is constantly moving, it's spinning, it's spinning on its axis, it's rotating around the sun itself is moving through the galaxy is moving through the universe. So to actually go back in time requires to go back in space, and very few time travel stories
Yeah,
think about this at all,
true.
right? It's just like
Yeah.
you open a portal, you walk through the portal, you go, I mean, I'll grant the time turner in Harry Potter, that's magic. A lot of things work
Yeah,
in
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
magic.
yeah,
They don't
yeah.
have any side that's fine. But a lot of otherwise pretty competent science fiction doesn't. And so I always thought about that. And then I thought about how you might solve that problem. And so then this kind of technical idea, this just a little kind of pet peeve of mine, and this like kind of lifelong fascination in the futures that didn't come to be that we thought we were going to have.
Mhm.
And sort of coalesced in this story about this young man living in the future we were supposed to have. Right, he lives in the version of the present day that that we were supposed to have, this techno utopian fantasia where all this incredible technology has solved all of our problems, but it hasn't solved his personal problems. Right, like war is solved, famine is solved, but
Mm-hmm.
like love isn't solved. Like having a
Mm.
complicated relationship with your parents isn't solved. Navigating friendships isn't solved. Finding your purpose in life, finding a career that's meaningful to you, figuring out how to take responsibility for your actions and not wreak havoc on everyone around you. Like those problems aren't solved because humans aren't solved. And so
Yeah.
that kind of became the genesis of the story.
That is really freaking. That was a good answer.
That was a very good answer.
That was a yeah. Because like when I read the book for the first time, I always thought like this is such a smart idea. Like I had never thought about it that way, and that really like yeah I don't know. It was a really because I was my girlfriend is an avid reader, and it's kind of thanks to her that I started reading again. Um, and then I picked up your book, and that was like the first one that I was like, okay, well, I'm a reader again now. Like, and I remember after reading it, telling my girlfriend like, you have to read this too. And she did, and she also loved it. And like, yeah, it really inspired uh me to keep on reading, but also to write my own stories. And like, how does that make you feel that you can like inspire people to, um, you know, yeah, to write
I'm,
for themselves or
I mean, it's lovely. I'm really grateful to hear that. It means a lot to me to know that. I mean, because of course, other writers' work has inspired me, and um, yeah, I mean, to feel a connection to the work is really special. But also for it to, go beyond just,
Mhm.
just to go beyond the kind of like the passive reception to want to create your own work. That's really exciting to me. I mean, I want more good work in the world. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, like that means the world to me. So I really
Mhm.
appreciate you telling me. Um, when I said I thought about the book for quite a while before I sat down to write it, and I had this like inclination that it was a novel, not necessarily a movie or a television show. That maybe down the line I might do that with it, but that I really wanted. I think I was craving the intimacy of the connection between an author and a reader. I mean, I feel that when I read other people's work. And as a screenwriter, I love working as a screenwriter. I love working in film and television, but it is much more collaborative, and you don't have that direct communication. I mean, the relationship that an audience has to a movie or a TV show is really the actors. That's their entry point, or maybe the eye of the, maybe the director's eye, and the frames that they create with the cinematographer. But really, it's the actors' faces that you connect with, and that your relationships with. Even if, as a writer, I'm writing everything they say, I created their character, I designed the scenes, like I describe the sets, but you don't. There's a lot of filters between you and the audience, and so I love the intimate connection, and I feel like the relationship that a reader has with an author and that an author has with their readers is something that's very, very unique. It's I think it was I think of it as almost like a kind of telepathy. Like I'm putting my thoughts down on paper, and somebody's able to read them. And of course, they're going to have their own interpretation of it, and they're going to read it through the filter of their own experiences. But I really love that, and to hear that it that had an effect on you is very heartening.
Yeah.
Love that.
Is that like the thing that you think is like the biggest difference between like writing a novel versus like writing a TV show or a movie?
Yeah, I think that's a big one. I mean, look, the wonderful thing about working in film and TV is it's a collaboration. You're working with all these other artists, and in a positive collaboration, like everybody's putting themselves into it, and you make something bigger and better than one of you could do on your own.
Yeah.
On the other hand, there are inevitable compromises. There are inevitable, and I don't even mean like compromises in a bad way. Like you just like any group of people with, who are really good at what they do, but probably but have like egos and have strong opinions. Like you're going to make accommodations. Like they're going to accommodate. I'm going to accommodate. And so what you're seeing is like the best thing that we could all do together. Whereas with the novel, it's very pure. I mean, the novel is exactly what I wanted it to be to the limits of my talent. And so there's also something really fun about that. Like, whereas a film or a television project is like very much a grand collaboration between people who are all hopefully trying to make the same thing and working together. A novel's a solo thing. And so if you love it, that means that you love this thing that I made myself. If you hate it, also my fault. Right. And so there's, and that's fine. I mean, like if somebody doesn't like the book, that means that they probably wouldn't enjoy hanging out with me, which is fine. There's too many people to hang out with anyways.
Yeah.
True.
That is true. Is a movie adaptation something you would like to see in future, or have you given that like much thought before?
Yeah, no, we're actually working on a television adaptation of it. So I'm and so I mean we did spend some time with Paramount working on a film adaptation, which was a lot of fun and I enjoyed it. It was challenging though, because trying to squeeze the book, which has a lot going on, into like a 2-hour movie was really challenging. And as much as I enjoyed the process, like it did feel that we were losing a lot of the things that made the experience special.
Right.
But I still would have done it because I think we found a version of it that I was still excited, like a version of the story I was excited to tell. But then, look, this is what happens to studios. Like all the people who worked on the movie got fired and new people came in, and then we worked with them for a little while and then they all got fired and the new people came in. And at a certain point it was like, we're not making this. But then Universal was really excited about it, but I working with the producers that I'm working with, we were able to kind of like, when we changed to a different studio, really rethink the storytelling, and everybody felt, and I felt this as well, that if we told it as a television series, then we actually can not just tell the story properly, but actually go deeper into elements of the story, like tell parts of the story that or maybe breezed over, or parts of the story that there could be more there. I mean, I didn't choose to kind of go deeper in the novel for the reasons of storytelling, but I also didn't want the novel to be like 1,000 pages long. But in a television show, there's things you can do that are different. So I got really excited about the chance to kind of like tell another version of the story with these characters, but with much more time than I would otherwise have. And so that's what we're working on now.
No, that's so cool.
Very exciting. Very exciting.
Very exciting.
I mean, the main sorry, I was just saying the main difference is that I have spent the last several years working on This Is Us, and so I've I've had a lot of exposure to the ups and downs in the process of like making like a high quality television series that I didn't necessarily have when the novel first came out, and I was mostly working in films. And so
Right.
the opportunities of television storytelling kind of like opened up before me, and I was like, this is definitely the way to do it.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Very exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it when it eventually happens.
Yeah.
Well,
And I will listen to the audiobook before.
no, that's fine, Katie. You know what,
I
Katie?
will.
Katie, I'm going the other way now, and I'm just going to say you're banned from it. Yeah. So you're not actually allowed now. You had your chance, and now you're banned from all forms.
See, now that you say that, that makes me want to do it more. So I know what you're doing here. I know what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, the thing about a podcast is if you listen to it enough, you can really develop like a pretty accurate psychological profile.
Oh gosh.
Like I would say, like there's like, if I listen to enough episodes of this podcast, I could probably guess all your passwords. And like I'm just saying, like
Please
you start to get pretty deep into people's psychology. So
Noted. Right.
Yeah.
So all of our listeners know our passwords and stuff. That's
Yeah.
I mean, if they're paying close enough attention.
Yeah.
That's
right.
terrifying. That's
Expensive
a terrifying thought.
incoming.
I read in one of your previous interviews that you also really look up to the work of V.E. Schwab.
Yeah.
And I've recently read the Darker Shade of Magic series, which I adored.
Yeah.
And like they also said something about your book, and I quote, "A clever concept that Mastai executes to perfection. An absolute joy to read." What did that do to you? Because I would probably pee my pants.
Yeah, I mean, there was no urine, but I was very.
Thank you for clarifying.
I was delighted and really, I mean, really appreciative. And I mean, in some cases, your publisher has you sends your work to authors to try to get a blurb. That wasn't the case. That was a genuine response that VE had to the novel, and so it was sort of almost even more appreciated and even more special because it wasn't like we solicited it and we were getting a favor. It was just a genuine response, which I really appreciated, and we've gotten to know each other and hung out and been able to be in touch since then. And yeah, I mean, I have so much esteem for their writing, and just as a fan, and also like kind of being able to like hang out and talk writing and
That's
talk
so cool.
process has been lovely. And I thought, have you read The Invisible Life of Addie Larue?
Not yet, but it's on my
Which
list.
is a wonderful book.
It's in our bookcase.
Oh yeah, no, it's
downstairs, but it's still on my list.
It's so good and so beautifully wrought, and so many wonderful ideas. But just the energy and the tone of it is so engaging, and I just fell into it. I loved it. I read it. I'm actually like a relative. Actually, yeah, I'm actually I'm actually like a relatively
Amazing.
slow reader, not because I really like to take my time with the sentences, and I'm always have two parts of my brain going, which is enjoying it as a story, but also figuring out how they did it, how they achieve. Like I love to figure out how they achieve. How a writer achieves a certain effect with the word. So I tend to read slowly. I go back, I reread things. Yeah. I'm like very, but that was an example of a novel where I didn't really do that. I just got lost in the story and kind of was swept away by it. And then afterwards kind of like woke up as if from sort of like an overlong afternoon nap, being like, where am I? How did they do that? So yeah, it was wonderful.
Yeah, it's on my list. I've heard great things about it. But it's definitely one that's on my list.
I think Katie's probably going to get to it before you do.
I think,
and then just spoil all the.
I'm going to give all the spoilers
at the rate that Katie reads. Like it'll.
Yeah, you better watch out.
Yeah,
it's probably.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't worry about it.
Right. Is there any like movie franchise or TV franchise that you're like, I would love to work on that? Like in the future, potentially, or?
That's an interesting question. I mean, the straightforward answer is no.
Right.
I mean, there's none that I'm like, oh, I really want to go work for that, because
Mm-hmm.
if I like something very much, I don't. My instinct isn't, oh, I want to participate in this story.
Mm.
I mean, when I was a fan of the show This Is Us, like I used to watch it as a fan for the first couple of seasons, and I got approached to come write on it out of the blue. Like I didn't look for that
Wow.
job; they found me, and approached
Right.
me and asked if I was interested in coming to work on the show. And it was that sort of situation where like I'm a fan of the show, like I watch it, and I always really enjoyed the writing, and because the structure of the show is jumping around in time and this portrait of a family. Um, yeah, over the course of multiple lifetimes, like it's my jam, like
Yeah.
that
Mm.
show is like time travel without the time travel.
Yeah.
Mm.
And
Mm.
so but I had to make a decision if I wanted to like cross through that membrane between audience and creator, and I
Mm.
obviously chose to do it. And it's been a really terrific experience, and I've learned a ton, and it's been incredibly satisfying being able to contribute to this thing that means so much to so many people around the world. But like I don't find myself going like, oh yeah, I desperately want to do that.
Mm.
I
Mm.
like at the same time, I mean, I'm a person in the world, and so I have certain characters or franchises that I adore.
Yeah.
And I mean, my favorite growing up was Spider-Man, and so like of course I would work on a Spider-Man project.
Yeah.
I loved Star Wars growing up. I mean, that was very much like it really captured my image. Of course, I would be thrilled to get involved in a Star Wars project, but I don't feel like that's a goal. It's not actually a goal for me.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
goal is to
Mm.
kind of create, like, to take all the things that influence me, some of which are like big pop culture things, some of which are more niche artistic things, some of which are
Mhm.
just like weird stuff rattling around my own head. Like the real thing for me is to make my own stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes those opportunities come your way because of the stuff that you've made that's your own stuff. But that's the stuff, that's what really like drives me, is I have this idea and I think it could be something, and it's going to take a lot of effort to make it into something. But
Yeah. Yeah.
if I stick through it, I can hopefully make do something like my novel, which you had such a lovely reaction to. I mean, that's the real goal for me.
Yeah. All
Mm.
right.
Yeah.
Nice. Are you working on a second novel already, or?
I am, yeah. I mean, I am. What do you work for my publisher? Because yeah,
No,
no,
no.
I am. I am. I have one that's very close to being completed, and I have another
Very
one that's
nice.
sort of midway through its process. I work on a television show
Yeah.
for 10 months of the year, and it's
Yeah.
very busy. And so things are moving a little slower than I'd like. But no, it's definitely, I mean, for me, getting my next novel out is a priority. And I think like we're in our last season of This Is Us. Like the show is
Hmm.
going to be over after the season. And my first priority, as soon as I kind of have the 98% of my mental real estate that's occupied with the sort of time jumping story of the Pearsons, like that's my next, that's the next big thing, is to get the next novel out.
All right.
Yeah. And
Speaking.
like in
Oh
this
yeah.
time, have you slept? Because that sounds like a lot of work.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you heard, Katie, but there was a global pandemic, so I haven't really,
Yeah.
like, it's not like I'm doing that much other than working and writing.
True.
uh.
True.
Yeah.
My professional cricket career took a hit, obviously, and
Damn.
Speaking of This Is Us, I'm a huge fan of the show. I've watched it since the first season, and I'm really, really excited for the final season, but also at the same time a bit sad because I'm gonna have to say goodbye to all of these characters that I've grown to
Mhm.
love.
yeah.
But I'm very excited to see it. Um, and I want to ask you, like, what was it like working on the show, like during the pandemic versus before? Like,
Mm.
there must have been like very like yeah different circumstances and measures to be taken. And how did you experience all of that?
Yeah, it
Mm.
was radically different. I mean, I feel very lucky that I got to have a normal year, a
Yeah.
normal period working on the show. I mean, my first season on the show was season 4,
Yeah.
which our last day of shooting season 4, I believe, was March 11th, 2020. So we like wrapped the show, and then like
Wow.
4 days later, the whole world shut down. So I was
Mm.
able to do the entire season just normally, which is, in a writer's room, which is a bunch of writers sitting around a big conference table with like whiteboards and cards all over the table. It looks like a serial killer's lair, especially on a show like this where we jump around in time and we have like cards everywhere and
Yeah.
like trying to like color coded and all this sort of stuff. Um, and being on set and being able to, be part of every sort of, being in editing, being able to be in the room with everybody. And then
Mhm.
we had to transition in our fifth season to this very complicated remote working situation where certain elements of the show we were able to do remotely. Like our writer's room is like being we just are on Zoom. It's just all the writers are on little boxes.
Mhm.
But you still have to make the show in person. We can't make the show on Zoom. And so there was a tremendous amount of logistic challenges to trying to bring the show, like actually continue to make the show. But we navigated. I mean, the upside was we had a great team in place, and even with whether there's the writers, the crew, the cast, like we've had many years of working together, so we
Mhm.
know what working well feels like.
Mhm.
For shows that were starting during the pandemic, we had to kind of get up to speed. Like I do wonder about that kind of connective tissue between the collaborators.
Mm.
We were fortunate that we had that, and so like the
Yeah.
writers,
Mhm.
we had a vibe. The cast like is already really tight knit. The crew knows what they're doing, and so we were able to kind of meet and we also had like multiple seasons of the show, which like this is the show. We know the show, and
Mhm.
so we I think we had the benefit of being able to kind of navigate this stuff with a North Star of quality and a North Star of collaboration that we had in place beforehand.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that
And
also
then this,
part? Yeah. Sorry.
oh no, I was gonna
Uh,
say, and then in the sixth, so that was the fifth. In the sixth season, we've been able to kind of have more of a middle ground, right?
yeah.
Where
Mm.
the kind of the pandemic restrictions aren't as intense. Everybody's vaccinated. We're able to do a lot of things in person, but at the same time, certain elements of the show we're still doing remotely because it's safer and also
Yeah.
because we can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask, like, is that also what led to the decision to include the pandemic in season 5?
Um, I mean, this was a huge source of discussion
Mhm.
amongst the writers. Do we pretend it's not happening? Do we embrace it fully? And our decision was the show has always taken place in the real world, right? I
Mhm.
mean,
Mm.
we make reference, and the show has always been built around like typically speaking, you know, it airs and it's essentially the time. Every episode that airs is essentially like the time that it's actually happening. So
Yeah.
an
Mhm.
episode that airs in late October would be Halloween. Like, and obviously we're working a little bit ahead, and our ability to predict the future during the pandemic became more complicated. But we just decided that pretending that the pandemic wasn't happening
Mhm.
wasn't the right choice for our show. It would be like
Yeah.
pretending that
Mm.
there's no cell phones.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
like you see these movies and like they have to come up with some complicated reason why their cell phone won't work because it'll ruin the plot if they can just call somebody.
Yeah.
So we decided to embrace, but at the same time, we also decided that that all these families all around the world, I mean, are grappling with how the pandemic was
Mhm.
impacting them. But still, like
Yeah.
it doesn't make your family drama go away. It doesn't solve
Mm.
your
Yeah.
it doesn't solve your romantic problems. It doesn't solve your problems with your spouse or your kid or the conflict with the sibling. Like all these things still exist, and if anything, some of them could be made worse by the extra
Mhm.
pressures.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the pressure of distance, of not seeing each other. Sometimes it's the pressure of being stuck together.
Mhm.
And so we thought that and because our audience has this relationship with this family with the Pearsons, we thought it was a very unique opportunity to talk about what life is like right now through the lens
Mhm.
of this family. At the same time,
Yeah.
after about the eighth episode of the show, so we did sort of the first eight were very much rooted in the pandemic, and then we
Mhm.
Mhm.
did start to kind of ease out of it, not because the pandemic was over.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Yeah.
it wasn't, but because we sort of felt like in terms of our storytelling, we were also the stories that we felt we were really passionate to tell. We didn't need to lean in that deeply into the pandemic, so it was still
Yeah.
part of people's lives. But we kind of like eased back a little bit on it and found kind of, I think, like a lot of people in real life, like found the balance of between having the pandemic kind of like conquer every waking moment of your life and then just
Mhm.
trying to live. And so
Yeah.
we felt that we tried to embrace that as well in the show.
Yeah. That
Very.
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
My one of my best friends, I need to ask you this question because one of my best friends is a huge fan of the show. She's also a huge fan of one of the actors on the show. So my friend Catherine really wanted me to ask you what it's like working with Milo Ventamilia.
Oh, it's
I had to
it's
do that. You're
it's
welcome, Catherine.
it's it's lovely. I just my episode that I just wrote and produced, which is going to be the fourth episode of season 6, is a really really special episode with Milo. Like, it's an I personally think it's like the best he's been on the show, and he's pretty damn good on the
Yeah,
show.
yeah.
Um,
I was about to say, like,
yeah, no, I mean, we were able to tell a story with him that I think is going to really surprise and thrill people. It's intense, it's emotional, it's very powerful,
Mm,
and so I got to work very closely with him. Just like, we literally just shot it very recently.
mhm,
Um, when we're recording this. And no, he's tremendous. In fact, I think that one of the things I really loved about it is we got to kind of pull some shades out of him that he's perfectly capable of as an actor, but doesn't necessarily always get to play on the show.
mhm.
Because,
right.
I mean, he's so charming and delightful and intense and wonderful. Like, Jack Pearson is such an iconic character, and I think it's easy to think that that's just like he's just being himself, but it's like, no, this is like he's a terrific guy off camera and a wonderful collaborator, but like, it's a performance, and he's an incredibly technically talented actor. And so
Yeah.
yeah, he's a real joy to work with. And it's like, one of the things I enjoy doing, and this isn't just with Milo, it's with all of our tremendous cast. It's like, I love to find um the thing that I haven't seen them do before,
Mm.
and think, okay, like, what's something I haven't seen them do before? um why would this character be in a situation where this would come out of them? Because you don't want to just
Mhm,
make a character do like, you don't want to, just because you think, oh, that would be cool to see the actor do that. It would be cool to see Mandy or Sterling do that. But no,
mhm,
why would they have to do that? Like, what would put the
Yeah.
character in a situation where that would be the colors that they would play? And I like to
mm,
think about that kind of stuff. That was a big thing with me with Milo in this particular episode. I was like, these are some things I'd love to see Milo do. Now, what would get him into that situation? In previous episodes, I had a similar thing where, like, I'd love to see Mandy do this. I'd love to see Sterling or Justin or Chrissy do these things. So I guess it's probably a part of the same part of my brain that the time travel thing, with how traveling back in time is also traveling in space. Like, that's a little niche, and I like to kind of find that little thing that I haven't seen explored,
yeah.
and then figure out,
Mhm.
okay, well, what would be a story where that would need to happen, and it's like
Mm,
that with characters as well.
Yeah.
that's
I mean,
very cool.
because I was a fan of the show before I started to write it, there's pieces of the history of this family where I'm like, gosh, I always wanted to know a little bit more about that.
Yeah, that's
And
really
maybe it's
cool.
maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm the only person who cares. But I don't think I am. And so I like to think
No.
about that.
Absolutely
And so
not.
I kind of like to go, okay, like, so what would be a story that would feel relevant to where the show is right now, but would allow me to go back to that moment in the
Yeah.
character's history, and
Yeah.
and see if there's any untapped. Like, I like to find the untapped veins of, like, if I just keep digging right there, I think eventually
Mm,
I'm gonna hit gold.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Well,
I feel like you like notice that in the show as well, that like sometimes there's these episodes that delve into like a certain aspect of like the Pearson family's past that has never really been explored, and then all of a sudden we're there, but it never feels jarring. It's always a natural like process, and it always relates to what the characters are going through in the present day as well. And I feel like, yeah, the structure of the show as a whole is just like very very neatly organized, and it all makes sense. And I think
mm,
that's part of the strength of the show and why so many people love it, including myself. That we keep watching and that we're so connected to these characters.
Well, I mean, that's terrific to hear. I mean, that's what we're trying to achieve. So thank you. Um, but yeah, but we take it really, really seriously. I mean, and it is that thing where, because here's the thing, of course, you live life moment to moment, but we don't write the show moment to moment, we
Mhm.
plan. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
mhm,
I mean, one of the things that's really fun, so we're in the middle of the 6th season. We've shot about half of the episodes, we've kind of planned and written about 2/3 of them, and we're near the home stretch. Although the
wow.
audience, it's going to, it premieres on January 4th, and obviously the audience is going to get a chance to see what we've come up with. But like, one of the things that's so fun about the last season, is heartbreaking as it is to say goodbye to these characters,
Mm,
which also, remember, for us, isn't just these characters, but it's also like the people that we've been
Hmm.
working with for years.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Mhm,
it's our family off camera.
yeah.
But what's fun about it is, like, we are like, we are dropping bombs in this season that we have laid track for literally years, and things that you don't even
Wow.
know are going to explode
Or
are like, it's like,
Yeah.
that's what's fun about it, because there is a certain kind of like, every writer is a bit of like a mad genius supervillain, like you love to kind of lay these traps, it's like,
Very satisfying.
yeah, that's how I feel, that's what it's like, where you're like, yeah, no, I buried this mine in your backyard like 4 years ago. Like
That's so
a
cool.
tree has grown over it in that time. You don't even know it's there. That's how far ahead I've worked. And only now am I arming it. And so you're going to go out in the backyard and pick an apple off that tree, and it's going to explode. That's
Oh
the
my
kind of thing that
goodness.
and so, I mean, for us, of course,
Okay.
that's a violent metaphor. But obviously on This Is Us, the violence is all emotional.
Oh yeah,
Is it-
definitely.
Is it like a thing where these bombs happen in the show, and like you go on social media and you're like, ha 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 ha, you see it all explode.
That's
It
what's
must
fun
be
about
very
it.
satisfying.
It is very satisfying, because I mean, like, here's the thing: is like, we think about this a lot. Again, to use the metaphor, like, you rarely see the comic book supervillain who's he planned something for like, or she for like years and years and years, and then like it didn't work out. Right, like that's not a story. So for us, when it works out, it's so satisfying, because it took so, like, the orchestration required to get there was so elaborate, and also the what's the term, when you're waiting for something for a really long time, it's escaping me right now, the
Anticipation?
delayed gratification.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So like, do you take pleasure in knowing that the show makes everybody cry?
Like every episode?
Like every single one?
I mean, look, the thing about This Is Us is people think of it as like this kind of weepy melodrama, but actually we write it like a romantic comedy. Essentially, the show is 4 romantic comedies. It's the romantic comedy of Jack and Rebecca. It's the romantic comedy of Kate and Toby. It's the romantic comedy of Randall and Beth, and then it's the romantic comedy of Kevin and whoever, his attempts to try to find his Jack and Rebecca, his Randall and Beth. The reason why you cry is because you've come to care about the characters. Like, no, we're not trying to like put the knife between the ribs. But most of what we're writing is like funny and charming, and it's about this family solving their. I mean, the reason it's a family drama is because all the characters are related to each other, right? So no, but at the same time, because if we've done your job and you care about them, then you cry. If you don't care, you don't cry. And so the satisfaction I take is not that I'm trying to like emotionally torture people, or that the writers or the cast, like, we're trying to like hurt people. It's that we're trying as hard as we can to make you care so much that when something upsetting happens, like, you have that reaction because we did our jobs. So so the answer is like, it's not, I don't take the pleasure in the pain. I take the pleasure, it's the satisfaction of a job well done.
Yeah, definitely. Like having that connection with characters, like seeing that your audience has such a deep connection with those characters just must be like, I just can't imagine like how cool that is as a writer and as someone who creates these characters and fleshes them out, that so many people care so deeply that they do weep at their stories all of the time. Like it must be a very cool thing.
It is a very cool thing.
Katie watched the first episode of This Is Us recently.
Yeah. I'm late to the show, but I watched the first episode and I was like, I care so deeply already just from the first episode, and like it is,
You're in for a ride.
I know. I was sobbing, to say the least.
and you're British, so that's like very difficult.
Yeah. We have no emotions.
Well, they're just like
they're very deep.
Yeah,
like
very
repressed.
very
Yeah.
deep.
Oh my god.
Repressed emotions.
That's fine. Look, I mean, it generally works for you.
I'm not. I can't even lie. Like I am a very emotional person. So yeah, no, it made me cry. It's very good. Very good.
And so have they revoked your passport, or they're letting you stay?
Oh, they've revoked it.
Okay.
I'm leaving. Actually, tomorrow I'm leaving.
Oh.
I'm not part of it anymore. They're like, no, you have too many emotions. You gotta go.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Do you need a place to crash or anything? Or
Yeah, I'm gonna come see you. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll be there tomorrow.
How, like, you've kind of already answered this, but how do you feel about like the final season?
I feel excited. For me, the challenge for me with television is that I love endings. For me, the ending is the reason to tell the story.
Mm,
The ending is when you have to
Mhm.
take a stand and you have to say what you really think, you know.
mhm.
Like whatever the story you're telling, it's all full of potential. It's all full of possibility, but at the ending you have to decide what
Mhm.
happens. What does it mean?
Mhm.
And so the challenge with television is you keep the show going, and you're generally like in success trying to keep the story going forever. And so there's never any
Right.
resolution. And it
Mhm.
also
Mm,
means like you can't really change the characters. So I'll tell you a sort of an amusing anecdote. I
mhm,
wrote my very first episode of This Is Us that I wrote. I got notes back from the showrunner, from Dan Fogelman, and from Isaac Aptaker and Elizabeth Berger, who run the show.
mhm.
And um, Dan said something really funny, which is like, he loved the script. His problem with the ending isn't that it wasn't well written and emotional and exciting; it's that I solved all the characters' problems. And he's
Oh
like,
my
he's
god.
like, this is great, but like we still have like 50 more episodes of the show. And I was like, right, right,
Right.
okay.
Mhm.
And he's like, let's just kind of like, he's like, we should just take this last page and put it at the end of the show. And I was like, right, of course, it's not a movie where you have to
Uh,
solve everything,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
It's a
mhm.
television show. And so for me, what's so exciting, I mean, like, I love that Dan and Isaac and Elizabeth just said, like, this is the end of the show, where we've been telling this story. There's going to be, like, have been, I think, in the end, like, just a little over 100 episodes, this kind of
Mm,
epic novel about this family, but it's going to end. And it's not going to end because people lose interest and have sort of
mhm.
drifted away and we kind of like whimper out. We
Mhm.
sort of,
Yeah.
it's going to end because we decided this was the time, and we're going
Mhm,
to lay everything, to use a sport. I'm not sporty, but to use a sports metaphor, we left everything on the field. So for me, what's
mhm.
exciting is
Mhm.
it's the end of the story, and we're getting to really like take these characters, and like people are changing, people are growing, people are becoming these versions of themselves, for better or for worse. Uh,
Yeah.
that we're sort of, you have to take a stand and say, how does this person end up?
Mhm.
How does this person, where do they end? They're like, where the story that we've been telling, where is it going to end for them? And I don't mean like in death. I just mean like this journey that each of these
Mhm.
characters has been on, for that the audience has been on with them. Like, it's
Mhm.
going to actually have resolution. And so that's
Yeah.
Yeah.
very exciting for me as a storyteller.
Mhm.
And like, what will you miss most about like creating this show? Like, what are the things that you're gonna miss most about it? Because I can imagine that, like you've been in this for a few years, and you've also grown to love like these characters,
Mhm.
and like, yeah, what will you miss the most about creating this show?
I mean, I think it's obvious to say, like, the people that I work with.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
I mean, most of them, like some of them. Ugh, no, I'm joking. I'm just kidding. No, obviously the people I work with and the collaboration. I mean, like, genuinely speaking, like, this is like the best crew I've ever worked with.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Mm.
like, I put stuff in scripts, and I'm like, I don't know how we're going to do this, and they just like find a way to do it, and it looks incredible.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah.
but you know what it is for me as a storyteller? Um, it's that the audience has such a rich relationship with all of these characters over years.
Mhm.
And so you can do certain things with the storytelling that you can only do when you have an audience that like knows these people inside and out. You can't
Mm.
do it the same way. And also, you can't do it the same way when it's like a character you've never seen before, or that you haven't really bonded with. You've literally spent years with these people. Like, in
Mm-hmm.
some cases you might know them better than you know people who are in your actual life.
Mm.
And so there's certain storytelling choices you can make that's based on that like really deep relationship between the audience and the characters, that you can't do in any other situation. And then when those little bombs that we've laid blow up, like, they mean so much because you've been watching these characters for
Yeah.
5 years, 6 years. Not in your case,
Mhm.
Katie. In your case, it's like since yesterday, but still. Um, and so that's what I think is that excites me as a storyteller. And
Yeah.
so I will miss that, because
Yeah.
Mm.
maybe I'll join another show that has that kind of relationship with the audience, but it's very rare.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really appreciate that about it. And I mean, I
Mm.
like all of us in the writers' room, all of us who make the show take that relationship with the audience really seriously, and we know how special it is and how
Mhm.
rare it is. But at the same time, I've always believed that when you love your characters, you have to do horrible things to them because that's how they figure out who they are, right?
Yeah.
Like a character finds who they are when the worst possible things happen to them. So
Yeah.
there is also, I love these characters so much, but that also means that I constantly have to torture them. Which is something you can do in fiction, but you should not do in real life.
Just to clarify.
Just to be clear.
No torturing.
Loving somebody in life, you don't make horrible things happen to them so they find out who they are.
Yeah, no. Very good advice.
For a second I thought I had it. Damn it.
Yeah, you had a little, you're like, wait a minute.
Wait a minute.
Katie, I'm going to solve our existential crises.
No, by torturing us?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Absolutely.
I think that'll work. That's
absolutely
that's great.
It's foolproof.
Thank you for solving this for us.
You've talked about like that you're, passionate about certain pieces of media and certain shows and movies and stuff like that. Is there anything in particular, like, do you have a favorite TV show or like a few favorite TV shows? And then the same for movies?
Yeah, of course. I mean, look, I love The Mandalorian.
Oh yeah, same.
I mean, for me, in terms of this, like as I said, as a kid, as somebody who grew up as a kid loving the Star Wars world, like it's the closest experience that I've had in media to like playing with my action figures, like on the floor of my room.
Right.
That's what I really love about it. And it's like when I would play with my action figures, like I wouldn't like recreate the stories of the Star Wars movies with like Luke and Han. I would play with like the other characters and and kind of create like just kind of like live inside the world of my imagination as it intersected with Star Wars. So for me, that's what I love about The Mandalorian, because it has it creates that feeling for me. And it doesn't have the same pressure that the movies have to be like epic and like galaxy changing. It's just like fun, exciting, unexpected stories in like these random corners of this really elaborate and fleshed out and well thought through universe. So I dig that a lot. I mean, one of my all-time favorite shows is Lost, which I think
Katie's gonna okay, well, I'll leave you two to it for a bit.
I love Lost too, and for me, like that's the that is the like gold standard of really really rich, like super detailed and like emotionally affecting character work, but also like crazy plot twists, time travel, polar bears in south of the equator, like mysterious hatches, like crazy codes. Like for me, it really, like that was like, again, that's an example. Like if you came to me and said like, oh, I mean, you can go work on the writing staff of Lost. I mean, time travel would be involved, obviously. Or we're rebooting Lost. You can be in the writing room. I would be like, okay, I have to really like, yes, on the one hand, I would 100% want to be part of that. On the other hand, I would be perfectly content just being an audience member for that. Like I don't need to be in charge of telling that story. I can just be a passenger on that particular train. But I mean, I'm always looking for like what's the next Lost. For
Lost is incredible. I'm trying to get Cobble to watch it. It's a big commitment though, to be fair. It's a big show. There's a lot of episodes, but
Katie visited me a while back in Belgium, and
I'm still annoyed about this.
Yeah, we were gonna watch the first episode of Lost together, and then we found out that it was on none of the streaming services that we have at our disposal. And then the week after, it showed up on Disney Plus, I think it was.
Yeah.
I was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah. And I haven't watched it yet.
It's a brilliant show. I adore it. And I could not agree more. And the one thing that I always thought with Lost was like a lot of people didn't really resonate with its ending. But for me, when I got into Lost, it was like it was in its final season, and I don't know, I just happened, like it was on TV, like it was on some random channel, and I was like, what is this? And literally like 10 minutes into the show, I was like, no, I need to stop because I need to see like what is going on here. and I remember just binging all of the other seasons, like 5 seasons in like a month, and then I caught up before it ended. So I watched like the ending live, and I feel like watching it all in that like really quick succession, because Lost was on for a very long time.
Yeah.
It was like a lot to take in. There's a lot to that show and a lot to take in. And watching it in that quick succession was like an emotional roller coaster. I was like, oh my God. But I loved the ending of it.
It's funny because, of course, I'm slightly older than you, and so I watched it when it was live. So for me, when it started, I had been a fan of the show Alias, which was J.J. Abrams' previous show, and so I was like, oh, cool, I'll
Mm.
check out this show. So I watched the entire series live. Like you'd have to like wait a
Yeah.
week to find out what happened next, and
Mm.
you'd have to like wait like months between seasons to know what was going to
Yep.
happen. And so for me, it's so interesting to hear that you had this experience of it binging it, because for me, like,
Mhm.
so much of the experience of the show was the anticipation. And it's one of the
Yeah, I
things
can
like
imagine.
I like about working on This Is Us. And we talk
Mhm.
about Lost actually often as like a touchstone for us. Even though we don't have all the supernatural, like in our show, like the supernatural is the emotional, and
Mhm.
Yeah.
the time travel is like is there's like emotional time travel through memory and through nostalgia and through your experiences. There's not like an actual time machine, and the Magic Island is basically, Jack and Rebecca's house. But but I do love that element of it. Like, we drop an episode once a week, and the audience has to like wonder
Yeah.
what's gonna happen next.
Mhm.
I like that part of it as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
honestly, I don't think I could handle it if I could watch like This Is Us. Like I don't think I could binge it.
Mm.
I
Yeah,
don't think I
people
could
do.
handle that emotionally.
No, people do it. People binge the show, and I'm like, why are you doing this to yourself? Yeah,
Exactly. Like I don't think I
yeah,
could do it.
yeah.
I don't have the emotional bandwidth.
Well,
I need to wait a
You
week.
need to process. You
I
need
need
a
to
week of
process, yeah.
processing before you
yeah.
can take on the next one. Uh,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um
Yeah, and I mean, you think about like in terms of, I mean, in terms of movies. Yeah, I mean, look, when I was a kid, I'm trying to think of the things I loved when I was young. Like I loved
mm,
Ghostbusters. I loved Back to the Future. I mean, some of these things, like you go back and watch them, and like sometimes they hold up and sometimes they don't. I mean,
mhm,
Star Wars was big for me, but like, these days, like the Marvel universe, if you had told me that these comics that I loved as a kid, there'd be like gigantic budget, no expense spared, massive blockbusters from like that are starting to be just about like incredibly random characters, but they take them all super seriously, and they're all connected, and the biggest movie stars in the world are doing them, and they're like the biggest movies in the world, and everyone loves them. I would have been like,
mhm.
the comics that I'm getting like made fun of in school for liking, like these are the most popular things in the world now. um so you do have that thing where you're like, what, like that's a giant, like that's,
Mm,
like, anyways, I find that really delightful, like that these kind of like artifacts from my past have become like gigantic popular culture. At the
mhm.
same time, there is this funny phenomenon now where like every single thing you had even mild affection for as a child now has to be like monetized as a global
Oh
mm.
franchise.
yeah.
Like it's not
Yeah.
Yeah.
totally necessary that every like how do you feel about Hungry Hippos? How would you
Oh my
feel
God.
about a Hungry Hippos cinematic universe?
Oh my
Right.
God.
I would watch
Yeah.
that.
I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, now that
No,
I
Hungry Hippos. Oh
now that
my
I pitch it,
gosh.
it actually sounds pretty dope. But yeah. Um,
I think you should write that down.
You're onto
yeah,
something there.
yeah,
Let's
yeah,
go.
yeah, yeah.
um
And then
so
it'll be like a gritty reboot. It'll be called
oh
like
yeah.
like The Hunger. And
Oh
yeah,
my.
I
Yeah,
It's
know.
I'm
like
down for
silhouettes,
this.
silhouettes, the movie
Yeah.
posters like silhouettes of hippos,
Oh my
and
God.
it's
Yeah,
just
exactly. Yeah,
yeah.
right. Yeah. Yeah. In a world of hunger.
Well, we're officially working on this now.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
it's
Coming
happening. You heard it
soon.
here first. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
100%.
Are you so now that you've mentioned that, like, are you excited for Spider-Man? Like the new Spider-Man movie?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm excited. I mean, I enjoy all of them. I mean, some of like, look, I mean, at their base, most of them are adolescent power fantasies about people dressing up as animals and punching each other.
Right.
I can acknowledge
Right.
that.
Okay.
Um, at the same time, they're very enjoyable and fun. And now, I mean, what I'm actually like, what I dig about the current iteration of this sort of cinematic universe is that the audience now knows the formula, and it gives the movies an opportunity to kind of like mess with the formula in fun and interesting ways. Like that to me is exciting. Like, I mean, it was fun seeing the kind of like this structure develop movie by movie, but now the movies are in conversation with the audience about like, how do we keep exciting and surprising you? And so again, this is a good example. Like if Marvel called me and like, we want you to come in and work on something, I mean, I would say, well, it has to be Alpha Flight, the Canadian superhero team, obviously.
Oh my
But
God.
yeah, I feel like that one's low on their list. But if they called me, of course I would be excited to have the conversation, but I'm also happy to just be an audience member and just to see where the team is behind these films, like how they're going to keep surprising us. That's what's exciting to me. Like it's the same thing with like, when The Mandalorian came out, I was like, I gotta watch a show about a Mandalorian who's not Boba Fett. Like, why do I want to watch? But but that was the freedom of it, right? And once you sort of know the formula, then you can start to kind of blow it up. And so that's what it's like. We've sort of hit this new. I mean, I know they release the Marvel movies in phases, but to me, what I dig about it is like, I mean, part of these new phases is like the audience knows what to expect. So how are you going to mess with that? How are you going to keep surprising us? And the half the universe has already been erased and come back. So what's next? I mean, so for me, it's fun. Like that's also a great example. Like it's like the world's biggest television show. It just only 2 episodes come out every year, but you have now a decades long relationship with these characters, and that's what I think is so interesting about where we are in our pop culture right now.
Yeah, and very impressive as well. Like the amount of planning that has taken and still takes must be like, I don't think I can imagine like what that's that's like.
At the same time, my favorite franchise is still the Before Sunrise franchise. Just like every 9 years, let's check in with these characters and see what they're doing. Like it's just 2 people walking through some European city talking about their feelings. But time becomes part of the story, right? Like who they were when they met in the like in the 90s versus who they were when they met again in the 2000s versus who they are in the 2010s. I mean, I don't know if they're going to make more, but I think that's the thing. And I mean, it's a sort of a theme throughout my work. Like I'm so interested in human connection, but I'm so fascinated by how that intersects with time. Whether it's time travel in a kind of a sci-fi way, whether it's the time travel of This Is Us or Lost, or whether it's just having a relationship over a long period of time, like the Marvel movies do, like the Before movies do, even like This Is Us has been able to have as a long-running show. Like I'm so fascinated by time and connection and how time affects us as people who find meaning in life by being connected to other people. That's just a sort of an ongoing theme of my interest in the popular culture, and my interest in the things I love to write about as a writer.
Yeah.
I never really thought about, like, because you've mentioned it a few times during the podcast now, that like there's that This Is Us also has time travel. It's just emotional time travel, and I've never thought about it that way. But now that you mention it, like it's a really nice like way to describe it, because it really is that it is time travel through emotion, and that it's really like I had never thought about it that way. So thank you for that perspective as well, because that was something that I like didn't really like think about, So
I mean for me, every all stories are science fiction. No matter what. Like, for example, I made this movie, What If, right? With Daniel Radcliffe and Adam Driver.
How was that, by the way?
Among
like,
other people.
Yeah.
That cast,
it was
how was
fantastic.
that?
Zoe Kazan, Mackenzie Davis, Megan Park, Spall. Yeah, no, it was amazing. We had like an unbelievable cast. I had a terrific time making the movie. I love the director that I work with, Mike Dowse. The point I was going to make is, here's my question for you. In the world of What If, right? Who played Harry Potter?
That's a good question.
Who played Kylo Ren, right?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Because they're in the movie, so they couldn't have played. So like, there's an entirely different popular culture that exists. So every movie is science fiction because it has to take place in an alternate reality where all the movies that these actors were in, they had to be played by different people. There's some other kid who got cast as Harry Potter and had his life changed,
right?
Because otherwise people would
never
be coming
thought
up,
about this.
Otherwise, people would be coming up to Wallace all the time in my movie and being like, you look a lot like Daniel Radcliffe, right? And so you know, these are so when you think about it, every movie takes place in an alternate reality.
Oh my goodness.
Well, I
Mind
think
blown.
we've found our next existential
Mind
crisis
blown.
with this.
That is.
Okay. Well,
What If is a great movie though. Like,
Oh, thank you.
we watched it together when
Yeah.
I went to Belgium, and
Yeah.
it's like I don't know, it's really, it just feels like a really like personal movie, and it also feels like a little bit like a comfort movie as well. Like I could see
Yeah.
that's the kind of movie I
Yeah.
could see myself rewatching just for like, because I really like the characters and like
Yeah.
really like the story.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I mean, I thank you very much for saying that. I really appreciate that, and that's very much what we were trying to do. You know, I mean, look, I
Mhm.
always say like, when you make a romantic comedy, it's really only a romantic comedy the first time you watch it. Like the first
Mhm.
time you watch it, you don't know what's going to happen
Mhm.
with the
Yeah.
relationship, and either you care about them or you don't, and then you find out
Mhm.
at the end, right? But I mean, if you like it enough to go back and watch it again, it's not really a romantic comedy anymore. You know what's going to happen. The dramatic
Mhm.
question is removed. So the question is, do you love spending time with the characters? It becomes a
Yeah.
hangout movie, and that's
Yeah.
really what we wanted to make, was a
Yeah.
movie that you just really enjoy being a fly on the wall for these conversations, spending time with
Mhm.
these characters, spending time with these actors. And it's like, I mean, we tried to design a movie that will actually get more, that will get funnier and more compelling, like you'll just, and warmer and more inviting every time you go back to it, if you
Yeah.
decide you like it enough the first time to do that.
I
Yeah.
think you definitely succeeded with that.
Yeah,
In
for
my
sure.
opinion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank
For
you.
Absolutely.
sure.
Yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
and that's a great example of a movie that's like very much about, like, it's just, you know, I love writing about people struggling to connect, finding those connections with people,
Mhm.
sometimes screwing them up, trying to fix them, you know.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And that's very much a movie about, yeah, it's about connection. It's about what do you do when you meet or feel connected to somebody? You know,
Yeah.
does, like, you know, can you know, is it friendship? Is it romantic? What do you do with that? Like, what is that sense of connection to somebody? And like, of
Mhm.
course, you're
Mhm.
drawn to them. And is there, like, does it have to be one thing or the other, or is there sort of like a messy middle ground that you can live in?
Mhm.
And how long you can live in it? And I think, you know, the answer is for as long as you're being honest with yourself about what you really
Yeah.
want. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there any like genre in the future that you would like to, tackle with your writing, and maybe like put that concept also like into, or
Um, any genre. I mean, I think that,
whether it's a book or a TV show or a movie or
yeah. I mean, look, there is something about like a really big sci-fi world that appeals to
Mhm.
me,
Mhm.
and how you can kind of make it still feel human,
Mhm.
Mhm.
um, and how you can still make it feel emotionally compelling despite like the grand, you know, a grand scale. I have to say, like, I would love to do a really, really good horror movie. Not that I'm like I'm
Mm.
totally fascinated by the genre, but I mean, like, I'm actually a relatively squeamish watcher of horror movies.
Mm.
Same.
Um, but I think that like laughing and screaming are like two extremes that you can
Yeah.
elicit. Like the thing about a drama is, like, when you're watching it, you just have to be perfectly silent, and that's fine, right? But if you're watching a comedy and you never laugh, then the movie has failed, right?
Yeah.
Likewise with a horror movie, if you don't feel scared, then
Mm.
then it hasn't succeeded. So there is something about the challenge of that,
Mm.
that I'm kind of like interests me. At the same time, like, it's not, I don't like wake up, you know, in the middle of the night being like, I have an amazing idea for a horror movie. Like, that's not necessarily how my brain works. And so I think one day it would be fun to do, if I came up with the idea that really like clicked, like, just to see if I could do it, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But look, I'm really lucky that I get to basically write the stuff that I want to be writing. Like, the things that I'm
Yeah.
writing are the things I want to be writing, and
Mhm.
I know that that's a very a rare, unfortunate situation to be in. So I just
Mm.
try to appreciate it.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would like to see, I would watch a horror movie.
All
Yeah.
right.
I like that. I'm
Yeah.
a fan.
Same.
I mean,
Same.
you know, maybe it starts with a podcast,
Oh
and
gosh.
you know,
Mhm. Okay.
and a
Right.
voice,
Maybe Alfred here gets possessed or anything, you know?
maybe when you listen to this again, there'll be a fourth voice. A
Oh
voice
my
Wow.
God.
that none of
Whoa.
us knew was there, and that voice
Right.
has things to tell you, specifically, Katie, about what
Okay.
will happen
About me.
yeah, if you don't read my book.
Uh,
Right. That's good.
That's what we call that. It's a callback. That's a callback.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was good. Yeah.
yeah.
Good.
Very
That was
nice.
really
Very
good.
nice.
Well done.
Thank you. I'm a professional writer, so
Yeah. I'm here all day. It's fine.
Uh,
Oh my
um,
goodness.
Then I don't know about you, Katie, but I have one more question that I would like to ask you, and that is, if you had any advice that you could give to any aspiring writer, like myself, like I'm writing a novel right now. Well, not
Yes.
right now. We're
Yeah.
doing the
In this
podcast
right
right now,
moment.
but
I mean, it'd be a little rude, but yeah.
if there would be any piece of advice,
Mm.
what would that advice be?
The advice would be just to find your voice, like the way that you can tell this story that nobody else can, because there's a million different tropes and kind of genre conventions, and there's so many stories out there. How do you know that yours is distinct? How do you make yours special and unique? The way you do that is with the specificity of your voice. You've had experiences, you have a way of seeing the world, you have a point of view that only you can express, and that's what makes it special and unique. That's what we connect to, is your voice, is the person telling us the story, whether they're in the narrative like overtly or effaced. And also the thing is, that also becomes what makes your book marketable, which makes it like financially interesting to anybody. So like, because if it sounds like anybody else could write it, what do they need you for? But if it's only you could write it, if it's a way of seeing the world, it's a way of telling the story that only you can do, that's what actually gives it value economically, culturally, socially to people. So it's both the best thing you could do for yourself as a writer and a storyteller and a creator, and it's also the best thing you could do for your career.
Yeah.
That's really solid advice.
That's great advice.
Yeah. All right. I think we're through.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've learned a lot, and
It's been
it's
wonderful.
been wonderful to have you.
I'm glad to hear it. And now you can start the journey of figuring out what your next goal for the podcast is.
Yeah.
I don't know what that's gonna be. Katie,
Wow.
I'll leave it up to you this time.
To me, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Katie. We're all going to be staying. We're going to be, we'll stay tuned. And when you unleash this next grand goal,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
throwing the emotional ring of a goal into the existential volcano.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
You can let us know. And
Well.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. I got you. Don't worry.
Yeah.
All right. I'll be
Cobble,
waiting.
you'll get like 15 texts when you wake up tomorrow, and it'll be like, I figured it out.
I figured it out. I've been up all night.
I found the answers.
Yeah. There you go. See? I'm really happy to be here I'm really excited to be here at the beginning of the journey.
Yes. Yeah, we'll keep you
Alright.
updated on that one.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for talking to us. It's been wonderful, and hearing your perspective on all these things is fascinating. Like for us as people who write and love TV shows and books and movies, like it's really, really cool to hear your perspective. So yeah, thank you so much for being on here.
Yeah.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And
Yeah.
if there's anything you want to say to the audience listening, what's going on in your life, or do you have something to promote, or do you want to just tell some people off? I don't know.
I do have a list. No. I guess I would just say that, for those who enjoy the show, the final season of This Is Us is going to be off the charts. It's going to be really, really good. And it's the ending of this show that we've been building towards for, like 6 long years. And so I hope people enjoy it. And I hope that they hydrate before watching it, just so that the tears can flow.
Right. Right.
Very important.
Yeah. And no, I mean, look, if people enjoyed the conversation, check out my movie What If, also known as The F Word, depending on what part of the world you live in. And of course, the novel Katie Will Never Read, all around the desk.
Oh my god. I swear I'm gonna read it in the next week, and I'm gonna make it my mission to tweet you. Like, I did it. Okay.
Beautiful. Okay.
Alright.
Really good.
Well, yeah. Were you gonna say something? Go ahead.
No, I don't know how you guys end things. Is this just what happens? It just sort of peters out, and there's like an awkward silence at the end, or you're gonna,
we end things quite unhingedly, actually.
Oh,
Yeah,
all
it's a
right.
bit.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if we do this in front of you.
Well, I will say I've enjoyed the conversation. Thank you for having me, and thank you for
Thank
saying such
you.
nice things about my work. And yeah, I mean, this was a lot of fun.
It was great.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much.
Yeah,
All
thank
right.
you so much.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
Well,
I hope that you have a lovely holiday season as well, however
Thank
you're
you.
celebrating. And I hope let's just all hope that 2022 is like nicer and doesn't feel like 2021 has.
yeah.
Let's hope.
Yeah, let's hope. Yeah.
All right. Anyways, thank you so much for listening to this
Yes.
episode. We've been
Thank
truly,
you.
truly delighted. It was really, really good talking to Elan Mastai. And yeah, we'll see you. Well, you'll hear us again next week in our next episode. And yeah, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Yeah.
There you go.
Do I do my bit where
Yeah, do your bit. Go
Okay,
on.
well,
Show him.
Elan, I'm so sorry. And this is what the next episode is gonna sound like. And then there's like a bit of the next episode that plays, and
That was
thank
beautiful.
Thank
You're
you.
beautiful.
That was a real emotional journey for me. Thank you.
It was, yeah. I could see that you
Yeah.
went through a lot of things as you witnessed that.
Yeah.